Hello, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and start the webinar. My name is Michael Chiakos. I'm the Director of Energy and Climate Programs at Community Environmental Council. And I'm joined by Katie Davis, who you can see here. And Katie Davis is from the Sierra Club. She'll be sharing her story a little later in the presentation. We have a lot of interactivity built into our webinar, and so if you have a question, Katie can answer it in real time as I give the presentation using the chat function. So go ahead and do that. The presentations are going to take about 40 minutes, and we're going to save 20 minutes at the end for live answering of any additional questions that people have. And we also have 4 polls that we will be doing throughout the webinar. The first one is up on your screen right now, so take a moment to take a look at it and vote. And we really appreciate everybody joining with us. We had about 400 registrations. So it's really great to see all that hunger for the electric vehicle knowledge that's out there. My name is Michael Chiakos. I'm the Director of Energy and Climate Programs at the Community Environmental Council. We're a nonprofit organization that has been based in Santa Barbara since 1970. Over the last 50 years, we've worked on solutions to many of the environmental challenges of our day. In the last 15 years, we reorganized to entirely focus on clean energy and climate solutions. And now we have programs in making our food system more sustainable, reducing plastic and food waste, climate resiliency, and my team works on energy and transportation, renewable energy, energy efficiency, programs to drive less as well as drive clean. And today we're going to be talking about electric vehicles 101, hopefully answering a lot of your questions. We'll be giving you some basic knowledge about the different types of plug-in hybrids and electric vehicles, charging, incentives, and much, much more. I also want to mention that this presentation will also be a PDF that will be sent to you at the end. We are also recording it, and the recording will be available in a day or two, and we'll be sending that information out to you. We'd appreciate if you've learned something here to be able to share this PDF and presentation with other people that you think might benefit from this knowledge. And I just want to take a moment to recognize that there's a lot of big things that are happening in our world right now, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Might think that during a pandemic and a recession might not be the time to be thinking about a new vehicle, but electric vehicles are a really amazing solution for a lot of problems, and we're glad that you're wanting to learn more. So Iris, do we have the results of the first poll? Great, so we had 33% of the people say their next vehicle will definitely be an EV, and about half considering an EV if it meets their needs, and 20% are here to learn more. Okay, so we are living in a great state for a huge selection of electric vehicles. Here's about half of the 48 models that are currently available in California. There's everything from compact cars to full-size cars, crossovers and SUVs, even minivans. And in the next year or so, there's many more crossovers, SUVs, and trucks coming, which are many of the vehicles that people are buying in America. One really great resource is pluggincars.com. It has reviews and information on all the different electric vehicles that are available to us. I'm going to talk a lot about the different vehicles, but before I want to talk about why electric vehicles. And it's really because driving is a huge impact to our world, and electric vehicles can solve a lot of these impacts. They're 3 times more efficient than a gasoline vehicle. So that's why you see these astounding EPA ratings, over 100 miles per gallon equivalent. If you think about it, a gas car has a lot of wasted energy, all that heat, noise, vibration, pollution, all of that is wasted energy, and an electric vehicle puts most of that into the drivetrain. Also, zero tailpipe emissions come out of an electric vehicle, which is very important for public health, for people with asthma. and reducing carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions. Just plugging an electric vehicle into the regular grid, Edison or PG&E, reduces greenhouse gas emissions by about 75%. Our electricity is very clean here in California with a lot of renewable energy and no coal. So that 75% reduction is huge. However, many of us can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 100% with an electric vehicle. Many of the people in Ventura County already have 100% renewable energy default through their community choice organization, Clean Power Alliance. And in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties, we are moving forward with 100% carbon-free power through Monterey Bay Community Power next year. So very exciting. Electric vehicles also get cleaner as they age, and our electricity gets cleaner. California has a goal of 100% carbon-free power by 2045. Additionally, gasoline engines actually get dirtier as they age. So the emissions components start to fail, as well as our oil is actually getting dirtier. The easy oil is gone. Now we're going after the tar sands and the cyclic steaming and fracking for oil. And then one aspect, driving on sunshine, which I've been doing at my own home for the last 7 years, and Katie as well, is really exciting that you can put a power plant on your roof that will save you money, as well as produce enough clean electricity for your car as well as your house, and really give you some of that energy independence. And even if you're not into all that environmental stuff, there's a lot of really great benefits in terms of the savings, cost savings, and the fun. Electric vehicles are really fun to drive. You can see from this torque curve here that they just get up and go, especially from 0 to 30 or 40 miles per hour, unlike a gasoline car where you have to rev it through the different gears. They're very fun to drive, the acceleration, but also the quietness, the less vibration. Most people who drive an electric vehicle, then when you go back to a gas car, it feels just kind of archaic. You can also save a lot of money. We're going to be talking later in this webinar about how you can charge up for the equivalent of $1.40 per gallon, or even less with solar energy. And then also reduced maintenance. You don't have any oil changes, very few brake changes, because you have the regenerative braking when you're slowing down or coming down a hill. And in fact, Alameda County did a study, their fleet manager, and found that they spent about 3.5 cents for electric vehicle per mile for maintenance versus 7.9 cents for the gasoline versions they had. And before we get to talking about all the cars, I did just want to talk a little bit about the carbon impact. In California, 41% of our emissions come from transportation. You can see that's the lion's share. And another large portion of these industrial emissions are from actually drilling and producing our oil as well as refining it. So it's about 50% of our emissions in California. So California is making great progress towards our climate goals. We actually hit our 2020 goals in 2016, but transportation is really the stubborn part because there's tens of millions of individual decisions. And in many households' individual carbon footprint, transportation is also about 50% of our emissions. So that means how much you drive and what you drive is equivalent to all the other decisions you make. Average car, gas car, creates 5 metric tons of carbon. And with an electric vehicle, you can reduce that to 0 to 1 metric tons per year. Some examples of what that's equivalent to, probably heard about beef, and eating beef is about 10 times more carbon impact to other meats and much more than a plant-centered diet. One cheeseburger is equivalent to about 10 miles of driving a regular gas car. Producing an iPhone equivalent to 200 miles. And a long haul flight, which is the easiest way to use a lot of carbon in one day, is equivalent to 3,800 miles of driving. So driving is a really big impact and could be the largest environmental choice that each of us makes each day. So the good news is that EV sales are increasing. In the US, there's about 1.45 million electric vehicles on the road. California is a leader with 700,000, including about 9% of new vehicle sales in recent years. But globally, some places are very ahead of us in Europe and in China. You know, California is a leader in the US, but in Europe, many European nations have more than 9% of new vehicle sales being electric vehicles. And in Norway, they have an astounding, in 2019, 56% of the vehicles sold were electric or plug-in hybrid. And they actually have a ban on gas cars by 2025, and many other countries have a ban at a later date. So there's a lot of momentum towards electric vehicles. Here on the Central Coast, which is defined as Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties, we have about 21,000 electric vehicles, and we're adding 400 per month. All right, so now we're going to take a fair amount of time to walk through the different electric vehicles. And you can see the next poll just came up, and if you can vote on that. So used electric vehicles, while you're voting, I'll talk a little bit about the most affordable electric vehicles. Used ones are often 3 to 8 years old, and they can be purchased for $5,000 to $15,000. They're very affordable because they're the first generation of electric vehicles, and they have a little bit of a limited range. Range might be 70 to 100 miles. And let's see, we're getting the results of our first poll. We say about a quarter of people are considering a used vehicle for their next, 37% a new vehicle, and 37% not sure. So yeah, we'll talk about the used vehicles and some of the incentives that you can get for them. So most of these vehicles were the first generation of electric vehicles, go 70 to 100 miles and then need to be recharged. They might work perfectly for many folks that have 2 cars or more in their household, because you can almost everyone could substitute one of these for a gasoline vehicle. Use it for all your around town driving. Getting over 100 miles per gallon could be very affordable. I want to mention that this is the Nissan Leaf. It's came out in 2010. There's definitely some of them for some of this lower price range. For $5,000, you could get a 5-year lease or loan that would be about $100 a month. You might save $100 a month in gas, and therefore could basically drive that vehicle for free. This is some other of the electric vehicles from Ford and from VW and Fiat. We're going to talk about incentives a little bit later. The other kind of electric vehicle is a plug-in hybrid, and it has the electric motor as well as a gasoline motor. So with a plug-in hybrid, you go 20 to 50 miles in all electric range, and then the gas engine kicks in, and you get great hybrid-like gas mileage, maybe 40 or 50 miles per gallon. So this might be appropriate for people that have a 1-car household, or maybe if you don't have access to charging at home, but you do at work, you could primarily drive on electricity, but then if you need to go to LA or on a road trip, then you can use the gas engine and get hybrid-like mileage. Back in 2012, I purchased a Chevy Volt plug-in hybrid, and I drove it for 6 years. Now I have a full electric vehicle. And we would oftentimes go for a month without using a drop of gas. But then you have the benefit of the hybrid engine for longer distances. So in addition to Chevy, there's a lot of these available used. There are also plug-in hybrids from Ford, and then also from Toyota. So new electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids, these are some of the top sellers. This one right here is the Nissan Leaf. And this is the most affordable all-electric vehicle. You can get one for, the MSRP starts around $31,000, which, as you'll hear in a little bit, after incentives could bring the price down to about $20,000, which is about the same price as a Toyota Corolla. But you get a lot more car. This vehicle has 150-mile range, and there is a more expensive version that has over 200 miles of range. And you get all the benefits of being able to drive very affordably, as well as cheaper energy costs and maintenance. This here is the Chevy Bolt, another top-selling electric vehicle. It starts off around $38,000, and it has around a 250-mile range. And so this is a vehicle that could probably replace many people's cars, even if they just are in a one-car household. I've talked to many people who have driven them to the Bay Area. In fact, at my wedding last year, my friend drove down from near Seattle. He wanted to spend a few weeks in California, and he brought his new Bolt. And he said that doing the road trip took a little planning, but was very possible. These vehicles are all from Tesla. Tesla is probably the leading electric vehicle maker, and they actually sell more electric vehicles than all the large automakers combined. And the technology on them is really amazing, as well as the charging network, which we'll talk about. The Tesla Model 3 is actually the top selling car in California so far this year. So selling more than even cheaper price vehicles like a Toyota Corolla or Honda Civic. And the price is about $38,000, similar to the Bolt. There's a wider charging network. The one thing though is that oftentimes with the Bolt, you can receive some deals. So you may be able to get it for less expensive than the Tesla Model 3. The Teslas used fixed pricing, although they did just lower the price of the Model 3 by $2,000. So now it's available for $38,000. Most people can probably get about $3,000 in incentives. Both GM and Tesla can't receive the federal tax credit, as we'll talk about. But for $35,000, you could get this car. This is their new crossover SUV that's hitting the roads right now and being delivered. It's another $5,000 or so. And then their SUV is much more expensive. This is a plug-in hybrid from Toyota. That's the Prius Prime, that is one of the other top 6 sellers of electric vehicles in California. And these vehicles are most of the market. There's a lot of other ones available as well, but these are really the top sellers. Here are some of the exciting electric vehicles that are coming later this year and next year. You can see most of them are crossovers and SUVs. This is the RAV4 plug-in hybrid that's coming later this year. Will probably sell very well. And then these are the first pure electric vehicles from Volvo, as well as Ford, the Mach-E Mustang and the Polestar. This vehicle is from Rivian, which is a very exciting company that could join Tesla as one of the new major automakers in the US. They will be selling this SUV and also a truck next year. And while no automaker has been able to become successful and really live for a long time since Ford, beyond Tesla, Rivian may just have it. They have a huge backing from Ford, as well as Amazon. Recently led a $700 million investment round in them, and they have a deal for 100,000 Amazon delivery trucks over the next 10 years. So great financial backing, be exciting to see them enter the marketplace. And then trucks are also coming in 2021. Both Ford F-150, as well as GM is actually bringing back their Hummer brand, believe it or not, for electric vehicles. This will be their truck. They haven't released what it's going to look like beyond this. And then this is Tesla's Cybertruck, a very polarizing design, but they already have over 500,000 reservations for the vehicle, and it will start at 40,000. So should offer quite amazing performance for that price. I'm going to talk a little bit about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, which are the cousins of electric vehicles. They have a much more similar experience to the gas vehicles that we're used to, in that you charge them or you fuel them up at a hydrogen station. There's 41 hydrogen stations in California, including one in Santa Barbara and one in Thousand Oaks. They often have higher range than electric vehicles and faster refueling. You can fuel them about as quickly as a gasoline car. They're a bit more expensive, starting around $50,000. But there's also great lease terms for them, where you can put the incentive as a down payment and maybe pay $300 to $400 a month for your lease, which includes all the fuel you use. So it could be very affordable. Might be a great option for people that don't have access to charging at home, because they're also a zero emission vehicle. One thing is that they're less efficient than an electric car, around 67 miles per gallon, still very efficient. But rather than using that electricity directly into electric battery motor and battery, You have to turn it into hydrogen first. There's over 8,000 on the road in California, which is about 1% of the EV sales that we saw earlier. But this could be another option for people that don't have access to home charging or have been interested in hydrogen vehicles. So now we're going to talk about the incentives. I know it's very complex. We got a lot of questions about them that we're going to be answering now as well as during the Q&A. But the main incentives are the federal tax credit. So this is up to $7,500. Most electric vehicles will qualify for all of that. Some of the plug-in hybrids that with smaller batteries won't get the full $7,500. You have to have this much tax liability on this year's taxes to be able to take it as a tax credit on next year. If you do buy an electric vehicle this year, you can change your withholding so you can get the money now rather than wait for next year's taxes. And also Tesla and GM have hit their cap of 200,000 electric vehicles, and you can't get the tax credit anymore for them. But for Nissan and Toyota and some of the others, you can still get that tax credit. There's also a utility rebate of $1,000 through Edison and $800 for PG&E. Edison's can actually be taken on used vehicles as well, as long as you're one of the first 3 owners. The more complicated one is the California rebate, which is $4,500 for fuel cell, $2,000 EV, and $1,000 for a plug-in hybrid. But there's also an additional extra incentive if you're a low to moderate income, which is defined as $77,000 for a family of 4. So that person or that family could get $4,500 off of a new electric vehicle. This rebate has been around a long time. There's also a newer program that's much more limited of a $5,000 grant through the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program. And this is for up to $104,000 for a family of 4. I do want to note that these programs are paid from California's cap and trade funds, which have been raising about $2 billion in taxes on large polluters. And this year, though, with coronavirus and the recession, the cap and trade revenue is very much in limbo, and we're not sure how these programs will get funded next year or later this year. So if you are very interested in an electric vehicle, it's probably great to act now so that you can qualify for one of these substantial rebates. And you can learn more about all these rebates at electricdrive805.org. And we're going to put up a poll that will actually, Iris, if you can put up the poll. I know there's a lot on here, but this was a confidential poll, and you can think through whether you might be able to qualify for one of these rebates. And we're also interested in just learning how we can tailor our webinars more to people, Californians of all income levels, so that more of the low, moderate income people can get the benefits of electric vehicles and the clean energy economy. So I'll take a moment, people can read through that. Iris, are the polls starting to come in?
Yeah, we have 120 people who have submitted their answers. We have 244 participants right now. So I'll just give a few more seconds to get a few more answers in.
Great. Great. So we had about 16% of the people that might be eligible for the Enhanced Clean Vehicle Assistance Program. I would really encourage those folks to go to electricdrive805.org and check it out. About 50% could get the standard $2,000 rebate. And then a fair amount, 19%, that might not be eligible for either rebate, but could get the carpool benefits. Okay, so now we're going to talk about types of charging. And, first we'll talk about the slowest charging, level 1. That's with just a standard 120 outlet like this that everybody has all around their house. Some people may even have them in their outside of their house or in their garage at a convenient place where they could park now and charge an electric vehicle very easily. Level 1 charging is pretty slow. It's only, it's called a trickle charge. It's only about 3 to 5 miles per hour. But obviously you're not going to drive somewhere and sit around waiting for the vehicle to charge up there. You're mostly going to charge overnight or maybe at work with trickle charging. And so if you drive less than 40 or 50 miles a day, it could be very easy and affordable to use a level 1 charger. You just plug in your car, charge up overnight. In the morning, you have a full range. For a plug-in hybrid, level 1's totally fine. And then if you don't drive a lot, probably for an electric vehicle too. The next charging is a faster 240 volt. And most vehicles get around 20 to 30 miles per hour on it. Although some plug-in hybrids charge a little slower. And this is the type of charging that you'll often see in public locations. You might put one of these if you have a large battery electric vehicle at your home, a smaller version. This is a public one, and at many workplaces and multifamily housing. And so these charging stations, and we're going to do another poll now about access to charging. So we'll just take 30 seconds if people want to vote if they have access to charging. While people are finishing up the poll, I'll mention with the level 2 charging stations, many workplaces have them. I'd like to give a shout out to UCSB and the county. I know a lot of people are on the call from those entities. The county has workplace charging at the County Cayo Real, at Betaravia up in Santa Maria, in Lompoc and downtown. UCSB also has a great charging program out at their campus. So we're looking at the poll results. About 58% of folks have home charging available now, 23% possible with upgrades at home, 32% at work, and only 22% are reliant on public charging. So that's really great to see so many people have access to charging now, because that's really the first big barrier of owning an electric vehicle. Getting back to the level 2 charging, you can charge at work, at home, and then when you visit another community. So when I had my plug-in hybrid Volt, I would usually never use charging stations in Santa Barbara because I would charge at home. But if I went to Ventura, I would charge up and then be able to return to Santa Barbara on electric rather than having the gas engine kick in. Level 3 is fast charging. And I wanted to point out that we have about 1,000 charging stations throughout our 3 counties, level 2 mostly, and 172 of those are fast charging stations. And there's been fast charging for about 8 or 9 years. Even the older Nissan Leafs can fast charge at 50 kilowatts. So that gives you about 60 miles of charge in 20 or 30 minutes. This allows you to use your vehicle rather than just around town. You could drive longer distances to neighboring areas. You know, from Santa Barbara, you could drive to Thousand Oaks, or fast charge and come back, or even to LA. And then there's even faster charging that's starting to roll out. Tesla's really leading with their supercharger network. Many of them are around 150 kilowatts, but the fastest newer ones are now 250 kilowatts, which allow you to charge very fast 1,000 miles per hour. I do want to note that the charging is fastest if you show up with an empty battery and then tapers off after 50 or 80%. So how you'll use fast charging when you're doing a longer trip. Now, my family, we have a Tesla Model 3. And so for an example of a trip to visit a family up in Sonoma County, we leave our house in Santa Barbara with a full battery, drive a few hours, stop about halfway, and for about 30 or 40 minutes, have some lunch, drive another couple hours, maybe stop for 10 or 15 minutes for a bathroom break, and then a couple more hours, so maybe 7 hours total, arrive at our destination. At my family's house, my aunt's house, we actually, she had a level 1 outlet by her garage that I could plug into. And although it was very slow, we were at her place for a couple days, so we were able to get a full battery charge there and make our return trip. We've also taken our vehicle. My wife took it for her bachelorette party in Yosemite all by herself. She said it found it very easy to use. We've gone backpacking in remote areas of the Sierras to remote trailheads. And so the big battery electric vehicles with fast charging make it really easy to be able to use an electric vehicle for pretty much all of your trips. Want to mention about the cost of fueling. You can really charge up for affordably with time of use rates. A good rule of thumb is if you pay 14 cents per kilowatt hour, it's about equivalent to $1.40 per gallon. So most people, this is through Edison, but PG&E has similar rates. You can charge for 19 hours of the day for 14 cents a kilowatt hour, just wanting to avoid this 4 to 9 p.m. time. And most electric cars, or I think all electric cars, even if you plug them in at 5 p.m., you could just ask them to start charging. We have ours set to charge at midnight to get the cheap electricity. Or you could charge it at your workplace during the day or on the weekends if you have your car at home. And it's very affordable to charge during the day now because of all the excess solar energy. So EVs are actually a great way to suck up that excess solar energy that California is creating more and more of. Going to quickly go through these because just wanted to show that there's charging stations everywhere. 424 plus level 2s in Ventura County, 100 fast charging stations. Here's some of the ones in Ventura. Here are some of the charging stations in Santa Barbara. Here are the charging stations in San Luis Obispo. And sorry if you don't live in one of the namesake cities of our counties, but this website here, PlugShare, is a great resource for checking out all the different charging stations. I think a lot of people have, considerations, a little fear and trepidation about where to charge. I want to assure you that if you can charge at home, it's actually much more efficient and quick to have an electric vehicle because it just takes 20 seconds or so to charge up. We just charge up once or twice a week rather than going to the gas station. Sometimes on a road trip, it might take a little bit longer, but all in all, we find it to be a much more convenient experience to have an electric vehicle and charge at home. If you have access to charging at work, that's also likely going to be the case. It's a little more difficult if you don't have access to charging at home or work. And so maybe a plug-in hybrid might work better. So I'm just going to go through a couple examples and then hand it over to Katie, and then we're going to wrap up the webinar and go to questions. So driving on Sunshine. This is Jeff and Mandy, and this is their example. Before driving on Sunshine, they had an auto loan of $475 a month. They were spending $300 a month in gasoline. Jeff lives in Santa Barbara, works in Ventura, so was spending a lot. Then they had a very small utility bill of only $30 a month. And so while they wanted to go solar, their bill was just really small. They decided to go for an electric vehicle and solar, and they did an auto lease for $260 a month. He upgraded to 18,000 miles a year. It would have been about $200 a month if he had a standard 10 or 12,000 miles. Then they got a 5-year loan for a solar system, about $300 a month, and they brought their utility bills to near zero at the time. Now Edison makes you pay about $10 a month. So the total savings is $245 per month. At the end of this 5 years, they won't own their car, but they will own their solar array, which has about a similar value. So this is a pretty good example. And he said it's exciting to make such a huge change and have it make total economic sense. If you go to CEC's website and Google Driving on Sunshine, you'll get a lot of these stories from different people that are doing this now. This is Tim Forker. He's a financial advisor at Edward Jones. And real numbers guy, he calculated his annual rate of return from switching to solar and an EV is better than 20%. Given the warranties and production guarantees of the panels, sees the decision to go solar as a risk-free investment. And in this day and age, there are no risk-free investments, particularly one with a 20% annual return. And the people that save the most are obviously the ones that are driving a lot. So if you drive more than 40, 50, 60 miles a day, you should definitely look into an electric vehicle and solar. What's amazing is that you can get about 2 kilowatts of solar for about $6,000. This was at the time a few years ago. It might be even cheaper now, especially if you go solar with your whole house. And that will allow you to drive 12,000 miles. So $6,000. And I've done this at my own house. My solar panels are totally paid off now. And the cost of gas over 25 years might be $50,000. So you can go solar, pay off your panels, hopefully in 5-10 years, and then drive for a couple decades for free after that. I wanted to mention that CEC has our Solarize program. We're going to launch this in July, and this is a group purchasing program that makes it easier and cheaper to go solar. We've already helped over 800 homeowners on the Central Coast, and we may be doing a program in Ventura as well. It kind of depends on the coronavirus and the recession and how the solar market is. But really encourage you to go to solarizesb.org, sign up if you're interested, and you'll hear about Solarize. So now we are going to switch it over to Katie. Katie, you can unmute yourself and tell us a little about your story. She's going to be talking for about 3 to 5 minutes.
Been fun answering all these questions. Everybody has lots of questions. I'm trying to keep up with them. I myself have been driving electric cars for over a decade. I actually got one of the very first Leafs. I was on the list before they were for sale in the United States. Like this white car up here you see in the picture was the number 4,000th Leaf ever made. So I'm driving them for a long time. And before that, we got solar panels on our house in anticipation of getting an electric car. And we did that because we did the math. Even back then, solar panels were more expensive. Our array cost $18,000, and now today you could get that for much, much less. But if you compare to the cost of gas over time and the cost of electricity, they quickly pay for themselves. Solar quickly pays for itself because it's a one-time investment and you're not paying every year. Over time, electricity prices and gas prices tend to go up 5% a year. So I just did the math, and over 10 years, even spending $18,000, I found I'd save $10,000. And then looking at over the 30-year lifespan of the solar panels, I found I'd save like $230,000 or something. So those costs of you're putting gas in your tank every week, as well as maintenance, getting the oil changes, getting all that stuff adds up. And when you add it up and you really look at the costs, having a electric car powered by solar really does make financial sense. And it's just a better driving experience. Once I started doing it, they're so quiet and convenient. I just knew I would never go back. And I don't expect now to ever buy a gas car. This picture is my husband and I today. We've got a Chevy Bolt and a Tesla 3. And in fact, my son, who's in this picture sitting on the ground with our dog, my kids have grown up with electric cars, and that's really all they've known. My son here, Alex, who's standing next to the Bolt in the lower picture, he's 18 now. He's a freshman at Cal Poly, and he learned to drive an electric car. He's actually only ever driven an electric car. So I think he would be confused if he had to go to a gas station and wouldn't quite know how to do that. So there are people out there with their driver's licenses driving every day who have never driven an electric car. This is my husband. He drives a Tesla. He also had a Chevy Spark for a while. It was hilarious.
Hi, guys.
Like 200 people.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, our family is firmly committed to this direction. The other thing is every single one of these cars keeps going further, so they keep improving. My first Nissan Leaf went 80 miles, and I had 3 leases. My last one went 120 miles on a charge. The Chevy Bolt goes 240 miles, and the Tesla is something like 310. So at that point, really, the first car was really around the town car, and if I wanted to travel, I'd borrow somebody else's car or do something else. But with these ranges at 240 or 300 miles, I really feel like you can go anywhere. We've driven down to Los Angeles, we've driven up to San Francisco. If you have the PlugShare app, you can look and see if you are traveling where there might be a fast charger or if you're going to stop for lunch somewhere where you could charge. So there's always a place to charge if you need it. Let's see, what else? I just think that this is the future. It's so convenient to not have to go to gas stations. I always was the kind of person that would get down, my gas tank would get near empty because I was always delaying going to the gas station. And now I can't imagine having to go all the germs and the and the viruses out there going to gas stations. The nice thing about our cars today is we just charge them at home. So we just, with these cars, we don't even have to charge them every day, just every week or so. We plug it in for a while and it's good to go. It's run on solar panels. We now actually have a battery backup for our solar too. So we will have power even if there's a shut off. I'm happy to answer questions about that as well. Yeah, this is a great, it feels really good to kick your addiction to oil, I have to say. And it feels really good to be part of the solution rather than the problem. And so, yeah, I encourage everybody to consider going electric. And
Great,
happy to answer questions when we get to it.
Thank you so much, Katie. And Katie will be answering questions over chat and back with us when we get to the live. We just have a few more minutes. One to talk about Electric Drive 805. This is a coalition that's making our region get ready for electric vehicles, making it easier to drive electric vehicles. This is a coalition of CEC as well as the air pollution control districts of Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo, the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, and the Central Coast Clean Cities Coalition. And this is really your resource for everything EV. A lot of this information is on this website, electricdrive805.org. We'll have the webinar live there as well as the recording in a PDF. And we do a lot of events, have green car shows throughout the region, had over 3,700 test drives. We received funding to do an EV readiness plan and are now working on those recommendations. The APCDs have EV charger funds. There were some questions about nonprofits and different people wanting charging stations. You might want to look into those APCD programs. Done outreach to hundreds of local workplaces, cities, condo associations. We're also bringing in a lot of new resources and grants for building more charging infrastructure. So in the last couple slides, I just want to address, a lot of the challenges and drawbacks that I hear from people, about the longer recharge time is really one of the biggest ones. And really it's different. It's just a different mindset. Rather than charging at night, or rather than going to the gas station, you charge at night or at work. 90% of that charging might happen then while you're sleeping or working. And so I found it very convenient to drive a plug-in hybrid or pure electric vehicle. Another issue is a limited range. This isn't an issue for plug-in hybrids at all because you have the hybrid engine as well. For a shorter range battery electric vehicle, that might work best for a 2-car household. But for the longer range battery electric vehicles are very capable and could work for a 1-car household. And then the other one about the cost. And many electric vehicles are now less expensive than gas cars, especially when you consider the fueling and the maintenance. And the electric vehicles are probably just going to get more affordable, although some of the incentives may go away. So in summary, it's really, a great value proposition, especially for leasing. You may be able to lease them for $0 down after putting the incentives down in about $200 per month. For low income, moderate income folks, it can get the enhanced rebates. That might be $100 a month, which could be close to what you're saving in gasoline and make it very affordable to have your transportation costs covered. There's the greenhouse gas savings, the cheap price of fueling, rapidly growing public charging infrastructure, and then just, they're really fun and it's great to be a part of the solution. So the time is right now to get the word out about the EV era. I hope that you will share this knowledge with your network. These are the 4 best resources. We've talked about this one. Plug-in cars is where all the reviews and all the vehicles, you can see all the different types if you need a minivan or if you need an SUV or a small car. PlugShare is where all the charging stations are. Go look at your community or places you like to go a lot, see where the charging stations are. And then this one here, you can click that link when you get the PDF. Katie actually turned me on. It's the place with a lot of great lease deals and they update it every month so you can see where all the best deals are. And to continue this conversation, we've actually set up a new Facebook group. And here's a link to this Facebook group. You can ask questions. This is going to be a great resource for the community to answer questions as well. I know we got some questions earlier on about different vehicles, wanting to meet an owner of a certain vehicle. This might be a way of meeting them, sharing your EV stories. And then if you could give us feedback on this webinar, here's the link. This will actually pop up if you're able to stay with us for the full hour. But if you have to leave early, maybe you could go to this link and do the survey for us as well. That would be very helpful. And now we'll get into questions and answers. And this is me back in 2012 when I got my Chevy Volt. It was a big dive heading into the electric vehicle world, and it's been a very rewarding and fun journey. So I hope that some of you will join the 700,000 Californians that are now driving electric. All right, well, thank you everybody so much for coming to the presentation. We have about 15 minutes now where we'll answer questions live. I know Katie's answered a lot of them over the Q&A. I'm gonna take a look at them. And actually, before we go to stop sharing the screen, I'll just go to one. We had a bunch of questions about the battery and the life cycle emissions. So I'll cover this real quick. I actually have a slide for it. And so people are like, is it actually greener? What about the battery? And I want to just share that there's been a lot of life cycle studies that have been done. And basically, yes, to create a new, like a smaller Nissan Leaf, there is some additional impact for making the battery. So for that small range EV, it was about 15% of more manufacturing impact. But it's a very small amount when you look at the overall reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from the life cycle, because most of the emissions comes from that 10 to 20 years of driving the vehicle. In fact, this Union of Concerned Scientists study found that would be paid back in about 6 to 16 months of driving, or even faster with California's clean grid of 3 to 8 months. So also many batteries, after 15 years, they may still have some life in them and could be used as a stationary source for storage for the grid, as well as at the end of that time would be recycled. So there's not a lot of large scale battery recycling factories yet because the used batteries aren't there yet, but we can definitely see those appearing in the next decade or so. So let's get Katie in here asking a question or answering some questions as well. Katie, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hello, I'm here.
All right,
Hi.
someone's asking about leasing versus buying, and also if there's tips for buying a used electric vehicle.
So I think I leased at least the first few times. We did buy the Tesla because they kept getting better. The cars kept getting better. So that's one advantage of leasing. And also you get this huge rebate back. So the first time I leased the car, I got this rebate back from the state that covered the upfront cost and essentially the first year of payments. It's like a free car. So it can be very affordable to lease. Particularly some of the deals are really good. Being said, now that there are more EVs out there, there's more and more used options. There's a lot of used Nissan Leafs out there because they have been around for so long, and some of them are really good deals, like in the $5,000 range. So if you're just driving around town and you don't mind having an older one with maybe slightly lower range, then that could be a really good option. In my experience, even after you've driven it for quite some time, the maintenance is still much less than it would be for a gas car, and you don't have to pay for the gas, and you still get some of these incentives also apply to used cars. So you could find a really good deal on a used car, and it might, because they're pretty reliable, not having a warranty might not be a big deal if you get a good deal on a used car. So I think both are options depending on your situation. If you want to maximize your range, then you might be better off getting a new car and leasing to get the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I want to just add to that many of the vehicles have a 150,000 mile battery warranty, and that is transferable to used vehicles. Definitely look at the fine print and talk to the dealer about that. And another option is if you buy a certified pre-owned used vehicle, there may be additional warranties on it. And that gets to another question that we have coming in from Facebook. Are there ways to support working class, Black, and people of color to be able to afford these? And that was upvoted 4 times by our everybody on the webinar. So I'd like to answer that. This kind of gets back to some of the incentive programs that I talked about. The state of California is really concerned and interested in helping to get the benefits of the clean energy economy to all Californians. And so a lot of those cap and trade funding that we saw go to different programs where there is actually plus up additional funding for people that are low to moderate income. So that grant program through the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program could pay $5,000 for electric or plug-in hybrid, and up to $100,000 for family of 4 is actually quite generous for people that could qualify for that. So if you can get a grant that might pay for almost all the cost of that vehicle or half of the cost, and then be able to drive it for very affordably, could be a really good way of getting working class people into electric vehicles. And we'd really like to see more people of all different income levels getting into electric vehicle, because there's this phenomenon known as the first electric vehicle on the block. And that's when someone gets an EV and then their family and their friends or their neighbors see it, and then suddenly the new technology isn't so mystifying and they could imagine themselves in an electric vehicle. So definitely spread this information wide to all folks you know, particularly people that may be able to qualify for these enhanced rebates.
Yeah, my biggest concern is just the awareness about the rebates. I think there are really good deals out there, and the rebates make it really affordable. And the problem is getting word out that they exist, because you have to know to go and apply for them. So if you can help people do that, that's why we're having this. One of the reasons we're having this webinar is to make people aware of these discounts that help, particularly help people with lower incomes, because there are more rebates available.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions coming in, and I see many of our attendees are actually answering them and having really good answers. So it's really great to have this crowdsource. I hope people will join that Facebook group that we talked about. So let's see. We have how are dealerships selling cars now with social distancing? A lot of people answered this, but yes, you can do that test drive without a salesperson. There's contact-free test drives. We're probably going to be in this pandemic social distancing for at least another year. So, many dealerships will even bring the car to you to do the test drive. So there's a lot of ways right now to be able to shop and purchase an electric vehicle, even with the pandemic. Someone is asking about, what about used electric vehicles? And, we did discuss that a lot. And I think that really even without the incentives, because they're so affordable, they could be a great option as a second vehicle for almost any family that has, more than one car. Being able to pick up an inexpensive used vehicle for $5,000 to $10,000, you can get a $1,000 rebate through Edison for that, and be able to operate it for very low cost could really help a lot of people to lower their overall cost of transportation.
So there's a question about solar panels, if not on the roof. I know that there are some carports that you can put batteries on, so there are other options. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, so not just on a carport or not on your roof, although that's often going to be the most affordable place to put them, but you can also do a ground mount system if you have the space. And
I also add, so Santa Barbara, our whole region has committed to joining these community choice energy programs. And one of the reasons is to increase the amount of renewable energy that's just on our grid as it is. And we may even be able to default, like the default plan being 100% renewable energy. So you may very soon be able to get affordable renewable energy just through your regular electric rates. Santa Barbara has a goal of 100% renewable energy by 2030. Ventura County, that joined Clean Power Alliance, they made their default electricity plan 100% renewable energy. So increasingly, our grid is getting cleaner too.
Yeah. Someone's asking if there's incentives for the purchase of used vehicles. There's the $1,000 incentive through SCE for the first 3 vehicles, as well as that CVAT program is also for used vehicles. And in fact, even hybrid vehicles, if someone realizes that, they just can't charge, they could get $2,500 for hybrid vehicle or 5,000 for a used or new EV or plug-in hybrid. Someone is asking, Katie, maybe you can answer this. Is car insurance different for EVs?
No, it's pretty much the same. I don't think, are there, it's a good question. I haven't noticed a difference.
Yeah, in my experience, it's about the same as a comparable cost of other gas car.
I will say they do have kind of better safety ratings, and some of them, like our Bolt and our Tesla, both have these kind of a lot of safety things, warnings if people are around. The Tesla actually can drive itself on the freeway. So there are safety benefits to some of these cars.
Someone is asking about, for people who rent their homes, apartments, who has to pay for a new EV charger? Is it the landlord or the renter? And someone responded in that they rent and paid for the installation of the charger themselves, and that when they move, the wiring will stay, but the charger goes with them. So oftentimes the renter will have to pay for the charging. It may be as easy as spending $500 to put a 110 outlet or a 240 volt outlet in your driveway or garage. Many rented apartments or houses also have level 1 charging at a carport or in a garage. You may even have 240 outlet for electric dryer that you could use with a charger. A lot of electric cars just come with a 240 volt charger, so that would be very easy. If you are renting and pay for that upgrade, I would say don't get a hardwired charger, but get one of the chargers that are portable, so that you can just put the 240 or the 110 outlet on your house, and then when you move, you can bring the charger with you as well.
And by level 1, Michael's just means, just a regular electric plug, electric outlet that you would have all over your house. And if you have access to one outside, you can charge. It takes a long time, takes overnight, but I did it for the first few years that I owned an electric car, and I think Michael did it too. So it works. It works fine if you just can find some place where you can drive up close enough to an outlet. That will work. That is an option. It's great if you've got, like our family, you've got multiple electric cars to be able to put in a charging station, and those are fairly reasonable too. You can buy them for, $800, something like that, and then you can get them installed. But you can use if you have access just to an outlet, that will work as well.
So someone is asking, how much does the average home supercharger cost to buy and install? So the supercharger is Tesla's level 3 charging, and most people would never put one of those at home. But maybe the writer is thinking about the level 2 charging station. It really depends on your electrical infrastructure. For me, it was about $800 to put in a level 2 outlet, but I didn't have to upgrade my panel. That could add additional cost. And then the level 2 charger with the Tesla Model 3 it's a charger that you can use either level 1, 110 outlet, or the level 2. And that came with the vehicle. So it was only $800 for me. That's probably a best case scenario, and could definitely go up from there. We just have one more minute. Katie, were there any other burning questions that you wanted to answer in there? Or we can also go to the poll.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll keep trying to answer some of the questions.
Someone was asking if there's incentives and rebate programs for multifamily apartments and condos. And right now, there are some incentive programs through the air pollution control districts. You can go to their web pages. They change often. And then later this year, your SCE is going to launch their Charge Ready 2 program, which is a huge program for about 48,000 charging stations. And PG&E has a similar program. And that will really help to add new charging stations at multifamily properties as well as workplaces. I also want to give a shout out to particularly the city of Goleta. I know that a lot of their new developments out there have banks of like 40 charging stations, some of the big multifamily properties that are going up there. Most newer properties, because of the California Building Code, are putting in charging stations. If you live at an older property, it can be a little more difficult, but that Charge Ready program should help. So no, we're getting up on our hour. I know there's lots more questions that we could answer in that Facebook group later. I want to respect everybody's time, as well as we have a survey that we would love for you to take a minute or two just to take right now while it's fresh in your mind. So thank you everyone for joining. Katie from Sierra Club, thank you so much for all your help there, and to my team at CEC for all the help behind the scenes. Really great to have over 400 people register for this webinar. We'll get all the info out to you very soon. Iris, can you go ahead and put up the survey? Thank you everyone so much for joining us.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Katie.